Seriously, you're looking for a Christ man, one who anointed with the Lord, with the Spirit of the Lord, to do His will. I'm that nigga.
One West, 125th Street. Look, y'all put y'all faith in presidents like they gon' change this country. Run the league and let y'all play, cause y'all gon' make a money. Fuck Obama, he ain't come here on Paco.
I don't like no souls. We don't like no souls.
Black, Hispanic, Native, they hate your ass the same. Hate Christ and they image, paint you as a slave. God ain't all love, scriptures say you hate African soft niggas, they know we not the same. School to prison pipeline to get you off the streets, put you in the cell fully connected to the saint. Molested as a kid, she prostituted as a teen. The byproduct of Martin Luther King dreams. They just took the yoke off, my nigga, we ain't free. We living bleak in these wastelands of poverty. If you don't know the truth, then the lie sound promising. Prophecy, gift and the curse. Dylan started killing, they was sitting in church. Black folk forgave him, man, this shit is absurd. You should never love your enemy, that shit ain't gon' work. Yeah, fuck dying on your knees, you better die in glory. Man, I joined the UPK, told me the art of war. I took a nigga life like mine to be recognized. I feel that pain every day, it can't be reconciled. Pops banging, my sister a prostitute. My brother got life, and somehow I still found the truth. War ready, no cowards, no excuse. Fuck reparations, you can't bandage no open wounds. Blood on the leaves, body swing hung from a noose. I was on a running Nashville and I found the truth. I called the school, classes being held by the shot on my life. I want to be a gangster like a cop. Do this for my brothers, real brotherhood. Everything we do, we got it out this book. My nigga, I can never be no African. UPK the only authorized acronym. I'm passionate about my brothers and sisters. We in hell, I ain't got nothing against them. That's another religion. If it ain't under your honor, ain't he murdered by them and got a hug from your honor. That's the way out for a coward in my observation. They don't fear the Lord, they indoctrinated. Wolves in sheep clothing, Joe Osteen. Real priests bringing back black royalty. One West on my headpiece, ranking order. Can't let them trick me off the streets, I gotta raise my daughter. I got brothers at the border ducking ice ages. I got the name change, it was life changing. My family thought it was a game, put on all black, they said I was going through a phase. There's more of us in jail than it was slaves.
Somos la Escuela Israelita del Conocimiento Práctico Universal. Hoy estamos aquí con la forma de Trinidad viajana y explica.
This is what Commander General Yohana did. This is what he did.
First camp, I cut off all my dreads. I took an oath when that oil hit my head. Niggas capping like they lids. I'm a priest, I never stick no fork in no pig. I was dead till I found out how to live. This brotherhood taught me how to be a man. I came back to my roots, I had to dig. A couple gaps I had to bridge. I got a rib, I'm married to this work. You wanna serve the Lord, he ain't in the Christian church.
That's right. Welcome to Atlanta. Price is Officer 5000, Jeremiah Yachty, camp leader of Atlanta. Passover 2025, starting April the 9th, we got the lamb slaughter. April the 10th, we got General Muhammad's flag. April the 11th, we got the black party that's going to have the Hebrew graduation. April the 12th, in Atlanta, Georgia, the 56th annual Passover, the only Passover under Commander Junior Hunter.
Our great and holy King have honored us for turning our lives from the darkness to the light, man. And no greater gift you can receive than to wake up to the truth and then commit your life to saving your brothers, man. Looking in their eyes and seeing their faces and seeing what they've suffered and what they've gone through and seeing the end of it, man. It is a guaranteed seat in the kingdom of heaven, man. So in the name of our King Yahushua, we dedicate us another Passover of brothers and sisters' lives being saved.
April the 13th, we got the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Shalom.
I got you. Let it vibe real quick. Look.
The city eyes, it's time to woke up. My God, a real nigga, cause he wasn't no flaw. Posted on the corner like a watchdog. Family secure, got that shot in the closet by the mop ball. Fuck what they heard, tell them it's all true. Be cautious, that foundation falls till you fall through. They gon' fall. Look, I keep this shit 50 times 2. Ain't no more heart in this game, I'm John Q. Colder than the ambulance, way above average. Ben's tasty, he told him make me an apple tree. Left us in the valley full of bones, this where hope found. Java, come on, man, dark sands get broke down. Riding through Evans to a mall quad, telling me how the crackers turn his childhood to a ghost town. Focus out, nigga, I lay that game down. I feel his pain, cause nothing is the same now. Never light shine like heaven through a rain cloud. Glock have a fit like my child, no tangent. Try to warn them niggas, we bear arms like tarantula. Them mother niggas rap, I make anthems for it. I really see prophets under this banner. Make my enemies bow down on camera. Told my design, I want it black and white like a panda. I'm better than that nigga that sunk dirt in the handle. Look, I move like precious cargo, spirit ancient, but I got a new semi-auto. Wave that bitch around like where's Waldo. Sleep if they won't, I cut through they Z's like I'm Zorro. Pay me for his name, so I gotta keep that steel clutch. Trust me, I'm not what you think. I squeeze till it click like Georgia when the heels touch. The world got me dumb, I don't feel much. Ride around with y'all down, just left the state bridge. Looking for a bitch better than baby's getting. Remember I dropped Quiet Storm, I've been gone ever since. Still in the field, fuck them niggas on the fence, yeah.
Pando killed the beat.
I don't know who, somebody need to hear this. Y'all speak Hebrew, that's Yiddish. How the fuck you try to label us anti-Semitic? We the Israelites, blacks, native Hispanics. The Germans get locked up for the Holocaust. Meanwhile, black people still up in the Holocaust. 100 million of us died in the transatlantic. 6 million died. Y'all want the world to never forget it. You can never be a Jew. You are Ashkenaz. This ain't a start, dumb, a gun, or die. Yeah, Yeezy told the truth and got ostracized. Not one person in the Bible had on the yarmulke. We were slaves in America like we was in Egypt. Y'all don't even fit the curses in the Torah neither. Y'all was blind to the truth. I had to make it clear. How Jerusalem, your land, your people came from Europe. That was 1947. Your menorah got 9 sticks. It's really only 7. Yeah, it's us against the world. Armageddon. This what happened when you inherit lies from your ancestors. Y'all the synagogue of Satan with them black hats. Your whole nation sitting ducks, Aflacs. Bunch of thieves and culture vultures, ain't nothing kosher. To tell the truth, you vagabonds don't have a culture. Macedonia, Alexander, and Philip, you a convert, so tell me, how the fuck is you Israel? That don't make you the people just cause you litter. Why my people can't hate your people like y'all hate Hitler? All the prophets was black and was called nigga. Y'all don't even fit the description that's in the scriptures. Abraham, all the way down to Jacob, we the real Jews. Y'all don't study Christ, y'all follow the Talmud. Keep it real, yeah, let's keep it real. Cold hard truth, it give you chills. Say y'all Jewish cause y'all ain't really them. About to do them like Hammond, it's the Feast of Purim. You BK undefeated, this an easy win. We was born fighting, y'all the evil twin. Jacob took hold of his heel, then out came his little red bastard, they kosher deals. It's only 12 tribes, y'all trying to make it 13. Esau despised his birthright, the Lord cursed him. He ain't the devil, who is? I'm still searching. Ask your rabbi why he give them babies herpes. I don't know what's first, that or you claiming that you a Maccabee. I'm about to cancel, everybody trying to cancel ye. I ain't afraid to speak, that's what I do. They riding to the core, I'm just judging them by their fruit. Cause they ain't suffering curses. If I was carnal, I promise I'll punch you in person. I know this an uncomfortable subject. They making millions off our culture and black people suffering from it. Yeah, they don't believe in Christ. They the Antichrist. Make a living off of niggas. They're a parasite. I ain't afraid to tell the truth. Niggas terrified. I'm about to go DEFCON 4. I ain't satisfied.
That is proof. That is absolute proof that they know we are the real Jews. Absolute proof. Now you got the records. Go find me a white Jew on any archaeology in Egypt anywhere. You will never find a piece of archaeology with white people as slaves in Egypt. So don't tell me that they were slaves and it's their identity, and they know it. And I know the blasphemy of them, which say they are Jews. The Lord knows the blasphemy of you so-called white people that say you are Jews and you are not Jews. You are not the people of the law. You are not God's chosen people. God's chosen people are living in the ghettos of America. God's chosen people are in poverty and depression in the streets of America. God's chosen people are walking around in America with no identity. That's where God's chosen people are.
Hey, I'm just following orders. Let me get one of those slow motion pictures, bro. One of the slow motion pictures.
You gotta shoot at 60 frames per second.
Come on, that.
They say they wanna hear that raw shit. These niggas claiming that they bullshit. These niggas better move it kosher. Cause if they make the wrong move, it kosher. See me, they like, ooh, keep on shopping. I'm on my way up and they ain't gon' stop it. They say they wanna hear that raw shit. I'm on my way. Coming up on my bullshit. They see me, they like, ooh, keep on shopping. I'm on my body, real niggas right beside me. Damn right, I brought my army, going up like a rocket. Can't nobody stop me. These niggas garbage, so watch your mouth, boy. Coming all black, slithering house, call me mouth, boy. I'm off the hip like a cowboy. I'm a king, you should bow, boy. Shorty like that, man, you cut up. Nothing I can handle. 144 in the booth, going Rambo. Niggas do you dirty like a stick in a bando. So I play the corner like a bum with a banjo. I'ma lead by example. Keep on sobbing, got this bitch off the hand, got this juice, got this drip, about to hit this bitch with the soap. It ain't rap, this is soap. Can't taste a bitch unless you with the coke. They say they wanna hear that raw shit. These niggas claiming that they bullshit. These niggas better move it kosher. Cause if they make the wrong move, it kosher. Coming up on my
I do it how a veteran be. You better than me. I'm Reggie at the edge of the key. It's all money, no honey. Think you settle and see. You locked up, fucked up, and it's back to the streets. It's one West. You can check the residency. I reside with rolling with me and they all red rum, red rum, red rum. Got you fucking scared some. Hit the banging on this beat till my fucking head numb. Black block, red drum, black and yellow air one. Homie, you ain't got a vest, I suggest you wear one.
Told these niggas growing up, doing a lot of talking. Now these niggas ain't saying shit.
Feeling like a legend in this shit, little nigga, I'm past veteran. Never feeling third, little nigga, I'm past second. Guns, I gotta have them all like Ash Ketchum. Shotty break a nigga ribs up like his wife left him. We all stepping, kill you with kindness cause I'm dead nice. That 5'7" put you 6 feet, not talking height. That judge giving out 5, what you doing life. These hands are rude GPS, a mean right. That's mean right, we build different, you know the vibes. And we stamped it authentic, we notarized. I keep a 144 because I know a kind. Know it's dark, you know I'm with animals when we flowing by. We back again, no cap, when I'm with cap again. Yeah, they said they want smoking, so we matching them. Everything righteous, so you know when we get back at them, you get hit up with a K, but no acronym.
They say they wanna hear that raw shit. These niggas claiming that they boss shit. These niggas better move and coach. Cause if they make the wrong move and coach. See me, they like, ooh, keep on chopping. I'm on my way up and they ain't gon' stop it. They say they wanna hear that raw shit. Coming up on my divorce.
Yes, Shalom Israel. We are the ISUPK out of 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under command in Hannah. We've been teaching the truth about the Bible since 1969, that blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians are the lost 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. All right? This is the ISUPK Trinidad and Tobago. Right? This is our Monday night class. Right? Don't forget to send your donations, pay your tithes to the school. All right? And tonight we're going to go straight in to the topic tonight. Today we're going to talk a little bit about spiritual Egypt, Babylon the Great, known as America today, and their influence in the world, right? And we're going to talk a little bit in terms of the situation we see going on today with Cuba, all right? As we know, right, Israel, right, the 12 tribes of Israel came out of Jacob, right, from his lineage, right, and Cuba, right, which the country that we know of Cuba, many of the people there belong to the tribe of Manasseh, all right, and they are they are also Israelites of the Bible, all right, and Cuba has been hitting the news pretty much lately in Trinidad, in terms of the situation with the nurses and doctors, right? And as we go down in the class, we're going to understand a little more about it, right? And how important it is, right? Cuba is our brothers and sisters, right? Once you have the Atlantic slave trade, if you're Black, Hispanic, or Native Indian, you belong to the 12 tribes, of Israel, right? And when we say Israel, we're not talking about the Israel that we know today, right? That Israel was formed in 1948, right, with the Ashkenazi Jews. So we're not talking about those people. We're talking about the Negro people of the Atlantic slave trade, the Hispanic people, and the First Nation people of Trinidad and Tobago and all throughout the Caribbean, North, Central, and South America. They are the true Jews of the Bible, right? And the ISUPK under command in Hannah has been teaching this since 1969, right? So we're gonna get straight into it. The topic tonight, and Baba Kusha, if somebody could hold Micah 3 and 1 for me, Baba Kusha. Right? So we're gonna get straight into it and understand the situation that's going on with Cuba and how it affects Trinidad and Tobago, right? And how the people in Trinidad and Tobago, predominantly Benjamites, right, are affected by the sufferings of our brothers and sisters from Cuba. All right. So like you had the Micah 3:1 Babakosha. Let me just catch up with you. Well, Micah chapter 3 and verse 1. Go ahead, Babakosha.
Micah chapter 3 and verse 1. And I said, here I pray you, O heads of Jacob.
All right, O heads of Jacob, right? Jacob, in the scriptures, his name was eventually changed to Israel, right? Go ahead, Babakosha. Yeah, come on.
And you princes of the house of Israel, is it not for you to know judgment?
Right, so it's for Israel to know the judgment of the Lord, right? Not any other nation. Go ahead, Babakosha.
Verse 2, who hate the good and love the evil, who pluck off their skin from off them, and their flesh from off their bones.
Right, and that is our Christian leaders today, right? All the imams and all of Israel who got tied up in different type of religion, right? They are feeding off of their own people, right? So they're plucking off the skin off of the Lord's people, meaning that they're advantaging the Lord's people, right? They have led us in all different type of philosophy and doctrine and all different strange practices, right? Away from the things of the Most High power, right? And now we lost in society, right? And that is because of our religious leaders, right? Go ahead.
Verse 3, who also eat the flesh of my people.
Right, so they devour the flesh of the people, right? That every day that we sowing seed and laying behind on the TV and buying prayer cloth and doing all kind of simidimi, except doing the things that the Lord commands us to do, right? And the put us up as usury, right? Go ahead.
And flake their skin from off them. And they break their bones and chop them in pieces.
Go ahead.
As for the pot and as for flesh within the galtrons.
As they call John, a cauldron is like a big giant pot where it's cooking. So you see them big pot, it is called pela one, them kind of thing, them big giant pot when they're cooking for about 5,000 people. Them that the most I comparing that to how the totally mash you up. It's like when we say in local plans, hey, we totally crush them, but we mash them up. You understand where I'm from? They use the most size people to almost to nothing. Go ahead.
Verse 4. Then shall they cry unto the Lord.
Then shall they do what?
Then shall they cry unto the Lord.
Go ahead.
But he will not hear them.
But he will what?
But he will not hear them.
Right? The Lord will not hear our religious leaders, will not hear our Christian pastors, right? Because of the atrocities they have done to the Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian man. Go ahead.
He will even hide his face from
what?
them. He will even hide his face from them.
That's right. The Lord will hide his face from all our religious leaders. Go ahead.
At that time, as they have behaved themselves ill in their doings.
That's right. And the Most High saying that our religious leaders today have behaved themselves ill in their doing, right? Go ahead.
Verse 5. Thus saith the Lord concerning the prophets that make my people err, that bite with their teeth and cry, peace, and he that putteth not into their mouth, they even prepare war against him.
That's right. Go ahead.
Verse 6. Therefore, night shall be unto you.
That's right. Darkness shall be unto them. Our religious leaders doesn't understand nothing that goes on in society today. They are lost in society. And by them being lost, the people who go to these institutions, the churches, right, and the mosque and wherever denomination they decide to go, they too have become lost in society. All right? And the reason why they could hold Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 48, and the reason why I go into this tonight, right, is because when you look around with the issue with Cuba in the Caribbean, right? None of our religious leaders could give us the right guidance, right? And what to do. They can't even guide the politicians what to do. And in terms, now we looking at Cuba as a totally separate people from us, right? When we all belong to the same nation. Understand? And thank the Lord for commanding China under the truth. We now able to understand that they are our brothers and sisters. All right. Give me Deuteronomy 28 and verse 48, Baruch Bishop.
The book of Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 48. Therefore shall thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee.
That's right. They say the Lord, thou shalt serve thy enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, right? So the Lord send these enemies against us. So when you look at what's going on today, Donald Trump totally making havoc and chaos in the world, right? And everybody, all these so-called countries have to comply, right? Including us, Black, Hispanic, and Native Indians. Now we're seeing that they are our enemies. Go ahead.
In hunger.
In what?
In hunger.
In hunger.
And in thirst. And in nakedness.
And in nakedness. So with hunger, thirst, and nakedness, we all, people now trying to see how dependent we really are upon Babylon the Great, or that known as America today. Go ahead.
And in want of all things.
And in want of all things. All countries now, as they hate tariff, all countries starting to ball. You understand? Because they're now starting to understand how deep how deep in bed they are with America, right? How much they have drunken of America's wine, right? Go ahead.
And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck.
Right? And they shall put what?
A yoke of iron upon thy neck.
Right? They shall put a yoke of iron around your neck. Go ahead.
Until he have destroyed thee.
Until they have bring the Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian man to the total destruction. Right? And when you look around in the Caribbean today, you could see, right, that our politicians have absolutely no power in society. They thought they had power, right? Many of them would go to the UN and make the big speech, understand? And people would clap and applaud, right? Until they realize with this situation with Donald Trump, they actually have no power in society, all right? So like, if you could just jump to the first article I sent you, sure, Baba, sure. The one with Kamala use local medical personnel. Yeah. Slack it. Let's not catch up with it. Right. You could go ahead, Bob Pusher.
Kamala used local medical personnel. Fraud conditions on U.S. sanctions over Cuban doctors. Send Cuban doctors and nurses back home.
All right. So this is Kamala Prasad, the opposition leader in Trinidad and Tobago. And when the U.S. told all the Caribbean countries, right, the sent out an advisory through their immigration department that anybody that have Cuban doctors or nurses within their country, that they would have to return them. Otherwise, he would refuse giving out visas to all these Caribbean islands, right? And all the different countries that have Cuban doctors within their country working, right? And this is the opposition leader's response in Trinidad and Tobago. Go ahead, Papa Kusha.
This is the position of former Health Minister Dr. Fuad Khan, who was reacting yesterday to outgoing Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley's taking a stance against the United States' proposed threat to penalize officials of government using Cuban medics by revoking their visas.
All right. So the Health Minister, Dr. Fuad Khan, he was the Health Minister underneath the opposition leader at the time they were in government, right? And he is trying to advise the Prime Minister to tell him, well, if we had to send them back home to keep with visas, send everybody back home, right? In order for people in Trinidad to get access to an American visa. When
Rowley on Monday said he would protect Trinidad and Tobago's sovereignty, even if it means never returning to the United States.
right? And this is the outgoing Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley, right? And his response was, if we had to give up, this will be it, right? But he would be protecting Trinidad's sovereignty, right? So meaning that if we had to give up it to keep the Cubans in Trinidad, we're going to do that. Continue, Babakisha.
And opposition leader Kamala Prasad-Bisesa yesterday said Trinidad and Tobago's first priority should be utilizing local healthcare professionals rather than engaging in a dispute with the United States.
Right. So the opposition leader now come out and say we should use locals, right? Instead of you using the Cuban doctors here in Trinidad, right? So that's why they want to send them back to Cuba, right? Continue, Babakisha.
Over its crackdown on Cuban medical labor. In an interview with the Express, Khan acknowledged that the People's Partnership government did source Cuban specialists, but only for a short term to fill a gap.
Right. So this is the health minister who was under the opposition leader at that time. And he said when they were in government, they used Cuban doctors, right, for a short time, and it was to fill a specific gap, right? Continue.
He said Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley should act swiftly and send Cuban doctors and nurses back as he is treading a dangerous line by defying U.S. President Donald Trump.
Right. So the opposition have become afraid, right, when they realize that Trump issued this order, right, to send the Cubans back, right, and he said they use the Cuban doctors and nurses as well for a short time for a specific gap, right? And lower down going to explain why they had to use the Cuban doctors, right? Continue, Babakisha.
Khan told the Express the Prime Minister should engage in discussions with the Cuban government about ending the contracts of Cuban health workers and sending them back.
Right. So the Cuban health workers, they come here to work, right? And they want to immediately end the contract based on the advisory of the United States. Continue.
We, the former Kamala Prasad-Bisesa government, did it at the time when we did not have many specialists here.
When they did not have what?
Many specialists here.
Go ahead.
And only for a contracted period of 3 years, he said.
Right. So they did it because they didn't have many of the specialists here in Trinidad, right? Continue.
He explained that specialists such as dermatologists, neurosurgeons, and vitreoretinal surgeons from Cuba were hired.
Right. And he lists out 3 different types of medical professionals, right? Medical surgeons, right? The first one is a hematologist, right? It's a hematologist are medical professionals who specialize in diagnosing, treating, and managing blood disorders. They are focused on conditions like anemia, leukemia, lymphoma, blood clotting disorders, and various types of blood cancers, right? So that is the type of specialist that took from Cuba. The second type was neurosurgeons. They are medical doctors who specialize in surgical treatment of disorders of the brain, spine, nervous system, and nervous system. Their primary focus is to diagnose, treat, and manage conditions that require surgery to improve the patient's neurological health. Neurosurgeons often treat a wide range of conditions, such as brain tumors, spinal cord injury, aneurysm, epilepsy, chronic pain, degenerative disease of the spine, traumatic brain injuries, and Parkinson's disease. All right, and the vitreoretinal surgeon is a medical doctor who specializes in diagnosis, treatment, and surgical management of disorders related to the retina and vitreous body of the eye. These surgeons focus on conditions such as retinal detachment, muscular degeneration, diabetic retinotherapy, and retinal tears, and other serious eye disease, right? So these is how serious these positions are, right? And they were hiring these people from Cuba in order to facilitate the gap that they're talking about in Trinidad, right? Because while Trinidad have many doctors, the specialist doctors in these fields, our doctors are not up to that standard as yet, right? So they were lacking in that particular area, and that is why they needed to hire Cuban doctors, right? Slovakia, drop that, right? And you could jump to the next article, Slovakia. Slovakia. That's the That's the whole one. Give me the one with Nursing Association, no impression on Cuban medics. All right. So the gap with medical doctors from Cuba was of critical importance to Trinidad, right? With all these things, a lot of people would die, basically, right? All right, go ahead, Baba Kusha. Salam Salakia. I'm going to present this on the screen so everybody can see. Yeah, you can go ahead, Baba Kusha.
Nursing Association, no impression, Cuban medics being exploited in Trinidad and Tobago.
Right. So when the United States offered the advisory that at all Caribbean countries and all countries with Cuban doctors and nurses need to be sent back to Cuba, right? They started to go to ask the Nursing Association about if they ever noticed anything, right? Because when the advisory came out, the advisory say that the Caribbean countries were helping to traffic Cubans to from Cuba and have them as slave labor, basically, right? So they were being held against their will and having to work in these countries to benefit the Cuban government, right? So they say that was the reason why they wanted to end the program, right? And the Nursing Association now, when the reporters go to ask the Nursing Association if they find that the Cuban working alongside them were looking like they were being exploited, or if they ever see anything that they believe like there was trouble or there was unhappy, right? And this is what the head of the Nursing Association, right? E.D. Stewart, right? And he now was answering the reporters on how he find working with the Cuban medical workers work, right? So you could go and read Babu Kusha.
Local nurses have never got the impression that Cuban medical workers have been exploited or even trafficked, says TT National Nursing Association President E.D. Stewart.
Right? So he says since the high-end Cuban nurses and doctors, now we taking Cuban nurses and doctors since maybe the early 2000s, right? And he is saying that since he was head of the medical fraternity, he never get the impression that they were ever being trafficked or exploited, right? Continue, Baba Kusha.
He cannot speak to what information the U.S. government may have. We are not discrediting the information that they may have. But from our standpoint, from what we witnessed, having worked with the Cuban doctors and nurses, forced labor is far from what we experience.
Right? So he trying to be diplomatic. So he say he cannot speak to the information that they have. But from as far as he see, it's far from that, right? They never see or any Cuban experiencing any type of forced labor within the nursing sector here in Trinidad. Go ahead, Baba Kusha.
When we work alongside them, we work in a spirit of camaraderie, mutual respect.
That's right. So the work in a spirit of camaraderie and mutual respect, right? Just like how you would have any other co-worker working alongside. Go ahead.
They are very loving of their country.
They are very what?
They are very loving of their country.
And he even goes so far to say them love where they come from. Right? So they ain't showing no signs of being fearful and going back or anything like that. Go ahead.
They speak highly of their country.
Yeah, go ahead.
They attend social gatherings regularly. They interact with us.
Right? And they attend social gatherings and they interact and they interact with them. So any social gatherings they have for doctors and nurses, they're happy to attend and they're not looking sad or depressed. Understand? Or they're not showing signs of like they were being humanly trafficked, right? Go ahead.
We don't see any signs of forced labor.
You don't see any sign of what?
Forced labor.
Go ahead.
So we can't dismiss what the U.S. government is saying. But from our standpoint, what we know to be forced labor, when we research it, we don't see those things.
Right. So you say when they research what actually is forced labor, from their standpoint, they ain't seeing nothing like that. Go ahead.
He said all of the medical workers freely return to Cuba after their contemporary 3-year stint is complete.
Right? So after they spend the 3-year contracts, they're free to go to Cuba. Right? Back if they want. Right? They have no problem coming or going. Right? Continue, Baba Kusha.
And they actually look forward toward returning to their country. He said.
And they look forward to do what?
Returning to their country.
Go ahead.
He said that was partly owing to TT's crime levels, something they were not accustomed to in their homeland. Stewart said Cuban doctors and nurses were filling an overwhelmingly growing void.
Right? They're filling what?
An overwhelmingly growing void.
So back when the opposition at the time was in government, they say it had a small gap. And the small gap that needed these neurosurgeons and blood surgeons and eye surgeons in Trinidad and Tobago, right? And now, a couple years later, the city gap growing, it getting even bigger. So which means they're even more dependent on having these doctors and nurses here in Trinidad and Tobago, right? Go ahead, Papa Kusha.
In the local healthcare system, he said the void existed because the country was not producing enough nurses to fill vacancies within the expanding healthcare infrastructure. And those who were leaving for work in the US, Canada, and the United Kingdom.
That's right. So we end up having workers from here leaving to go to the US, to Canada, right? And to the United Kingdom. So some of our doctors, after they finished medical school, decided to pursue their career in the United States, in Canada, and the United Kingdom. So we going over there is not forced labor, you understand? Because we going to work in the United States, we're going to work in Canada, and we go in the United Kingdom. But when Cuba sent their doctors here, they're under duress, they're under forced labor. I understand? So it's one-sided. You understand? Go ahead, continue.
So we will be placed at a further disadvantage to provide quality health care.
Right? And because of this, they're going to be placed at a disadvantage to provide quality health care. Because if Trinidad and Tobago do not have these doctors assisting and providing alongside our healthcare practitioners here in Trinidad and Tobago, this place, if you think it's hell now, it's going to be extreme hell. The condition is going to become extra worse. You understand? Right? And because the United States is the most powerful country in the world, right? They're showing their strong arm, you understand? To strong arm the entire Caribbean. You understand? So by laying that punishment upon Cuba, now the punishment has indirectly taken the entire Caribbean, right? And now the Caribbean leaders have found themselves in a difficult place because not only Trinidad and Tobago utilize the Cuban doctors, right? The majority of Caribbean islands utilize Cuban doctors because the Cuban doctor program, right? They train doctors and then they send the doctors out to various Caribbean countries to assist, right? And that is how the Cuban government is able to raise finances because a lot of sanctions from the United States is on Cuba, so they cannot access a lot of things, right? And when you go and look at Cuba looking like it in the 1960s. You understand? Because their infrastructure hasn't changed. Like the place just freezing time. You understand? Them still are old cars from 1989 and things. You understand? Nothing new, right? Because the US put heavy sanctions on them, right? And as we go down, we go talk. I make a little summary about the Cuban Missile Crisis, while these pressures come down on Cuba, right? Continue, Baba Kusha.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced on February 25th the expansion of an existing Cuba-related visa restriction policy that targets forced labor.
Right. So the makeup of a restriction, a Cuba visa restriction policy that targets forced labor. But the visa restriction is for forced labor, but yet still the restriction apply across the board. Even if you're not even in the medical world, you're still banned from having a visa, right? So so they ban everybody in order to try to stop forced labor. You understand? Where
linked to the Cuba labor export program. In it, he threatened to revoke the visas of government officials whose countries are recipients of Cuba's medical mission.
That's right. So he threatened to revoke what? The
visas of government officials whose countries are recipients of Cuba's medical mission.
That's right. So once your country have medical nurses or medical practitioners, right? They each threaten the heads first and make them know, hey, I go take all the visa. You understand? So many countries become very afraid, right? I even saw an article with the Prime Minister of Bahamas. He come out and say one time he reviewing the Cuba doctor program immediately because he want to keep his visa. You understand? Immediately, right? Continue.
This policy also applies to the immediate family of such persons. The department has already taken steps to impose visa restrictions on several individuals, including Venezuelans, under this expanded policy.
Right, and it also expands to the Venezuelans as well, right? So you could see Trump bringing on the full hammer on Cuba and even Venezuela, right? Because they already had that history of fighting between both of them, right? Right. One tribe being Manasa and the next tribe being Asha, right? Venezuelans is the Asherites, right? Right. And in another clip here, they say forced labor is a serious violation of human rights, where individuals are coerced into working against their will, right? Under the threat of punishment, harm, or other forms of control. This can take many forms, including physical, psychological abuse, threats, debt, bondage, or withholding of wages. Forced labor can be in various industries such as agriculture, construction, domestic work, or even illicit sectors. Right? And it say the International Labour Organization, the ILO, of the Human Rights Organization, they're working to combat that, right? But the way they're saying is these people are facing threats of harm or other forms of control, human rights violations such as being coerced to work against the will, and the threat, psychological abuse, threats and debt bondage or withholding wages, right? It all is a form of forced labor, right? And based on what the head of the nursing association is saying is, right? They never see nothing like that, and their Cuban co-workers never experienced nothing like that, right? So the allegations that the so-called America today is bringing against the Cubans, right? Nobody could verify if this is truth or not. You understand? Right? They bring an allegation and they bring it without evidence, right? And this is the work of the so-called oppressor today. Understand? Because he has that authority in the earth today. When he speaks, a lot of things tend to move and shake different places in society. All right, and if somebody is just to take the headlines, understand, just as hearsay, right, they would believe what the oppressor is saying, right? Slovakia. Just now, we will jump to give me the one with on the Al Jazeera, sorry, Slovakia, why are Caribbean leaders fighting Trump?
Yeah, ready back.
Can. Let's put it up on the screen. Yeah, if you go ahead.
Why are Caribbean leaders fighting Trump to keep Cuban doctors? Cuban medical missions provide crucial support to several Caribbean healthcare systems, especially in times of crisis. Cuban leaders have hit back at the threat issued by the United States government to cancel visas for anyone working with a support Cuban medical facilities, citing allegations of forced labor and claiming these missions enrich the Cuban regime.
The missions do what?
Enrich the Cuban regime.
Right, so the states forced labor and it enrich the Cuban regime. Go ahead.
Cuban medical missions, which provide doctors, nurses, and other medical staff, as well as medical facilities, are critical to healthcare systems in the Caribbean. So how have Caribbean nations responded to the threat, and what would it mean for healthcare there?
Go ahead.
Why is the U.S. government taking aim at Cuba's medical program?
Go ahead.
The targeting of Cuban medical missions is not new, for U.S. President Donald Trump's administration.
Right, so this was happening already. Go ahead.
During his first term as president of the U.S., from 2017 to 2021, his administration imposed visa sanctions on Cuba global medical program.
Right, so before he even tried to attack it on a more global level, right? Go ahead.
His government claimed these missions amounted to human trafficking because it said Cuban doctors are reportedly underpaid.
Right, so and this article here, the site human trafficking, and one of the reasons the added to it was that the doctors were reportedly underpaid. Go ahead.
This time around, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has announced restrictions on visas for government officials in Cuba and anyone else globally.
Right, so government restrictions for officials in Cuba and anyone else globally. Go ahead.
That the U.S. deems to be complicit with Cuba foreign medical program.
Right, so once they involve or near any program like that, the banning you from coming to America. Right, go ahead.
The State Department said the restrictions would extend to current and former officials, as well as the immediate family of such persons.
Right, so the immediate family, and even if it's a current, so if you're serving in politics now, or even if he was a former politician, the banning and all. Go ahead.
Rubio called the Cuban medical program a form of forced labor, and the government has warned that Caribbean nations participating in these programs could face visa restrictions.
Right, and now it comes down to the Caribbean nations participating in the programs could also face restrictions as well. Go ahead.
As well as potential trade repercussions.
As well as what?
Potential trade repercussions.
So now they're even threatening them with trade. Go ahead.
However, no concrete evidence has been provided to support these claims.
No what?
No concrete evidence has been provided to support these claims.
And since the release at that statement from the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, no evidence has come up to show, well, all right, this, look at happening here. You understand? But yet still, this viral all over the internet and viral all through the news stations. You understand? Well,
The U.S. alleges that Cuba government exploits its medical professionals by keeping a large portion of their wages and restricting their freedom. While some Cuban doctors have defected and criticized the conditions of the program, many others say they willingly participate.
Right? So they say some defected, some criticize the conditions of the program, and they say many others willingly participate, right? And they say the US alleges. So that just above, they had no concrete evidence. And they still come back, and although they have no concrete evidence, they still come back and make a statement and say some defected and some willingly participate. You understand? And they just say we had no evidence before. Right? Go ahead.
Tamaris Bahamon, an economist at the US-based Center for Latin American and Latino Studies, said this issue is complex and should center the voices of the doctors themselves. Regardless of whatever Cuban doctors qualify as forced labor, we do know that they do not negotiate their own contracts or working conditions, she said. Cuba retains a significant portion of their salaries, and there are testimonies from doctors confirming restrictions on movement, confiscating of passports by Cuban authorities in host countries.
Right. So this was seen at the stage. This is a U.S. Tamari Bahamon, an economist at the U.S.-based Center for Latin America and Latino Studies, said this issue is complex, right? And he started this out, and he's saying here Cubans retain a significant portion of their salaries, and there are testimonies from doctors confirming restrictions of movement, right? So he noted the government couldn't still, all this he bring out here, and the government still couldn't find concrete evidence that this happening, right? Although they putting all these allegations against Cuba, right? Somebody hold Psalms 55 and 21 from Babakusha, please. Right? Continue, Babakusha.
And limitations on bringing their families along. At the same time, Bahamon reiterated the crucial role that Cuban medical professionals play, especially when it comes to providing healthcare services to undeserved communities.
To the underserved communities, right? So it's showing you who benefiting, right? What from this healthcare being provided, right? The people that benefiting is the people in underserved communities, the people who don't have enough medical practitioners in their area. Without these people, them dead. And the people who in underserved communities is the people in the ghetto. It's blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. We are the people in these underserved communities. We are the people who fighting to get proper medical health care. You understand? We can just run to a private doctor and say, pay 40,000 and do a surgery. You understand? You depending on the public health care to get treated, right? So give me Psalm chapter 55 and verse 21, Babakusha.
Psalm chapter 55 and verse 21. The word of his mouth was smoother than butter.
That's right. That is how our processors function. They say the word of his mouth was smoother than butter, right? And all the allegations they keep pulling out, bringing allegations after allegations against the Cubans. But people don't understand, or in front of all the statements have alleged. This is not true, it's not factual. They have no concrete evidence to say this is true. But because the word's so smooth, when they bring it across in the media, you actually feel that this happening, right? That all the Caribbean countries participating in this big Cuban ring, right? And trafficking Cubans all over the world and all through the Caribbean. Understand? Right? Continue, but read back the first part, Babakusha.
Can. Psalm chapter 55 and verse 21. The words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but wars in his heart.
But war was what?
But war was in his heart.
That's right. Understand? They're using this so-called crisis with the nurses and doctors, right? Because they have war in the heart. They have a bigger plan. going on in the heart. You understand? And that is how wicked our oppressor is. That is how destructive our oppressor is in this society. You understand where I'm coming from? Right? Them look at Cuba and decide what plan we could come up with, boy. Understand? And they decide to attack the doctor and nurses program. You understand? Because they realize that is the only straw Cuba holding on to right now. If that program shut down, well, I don't know what happened to Cuba. You understand? Because Cuba has some of the best doctors and nurses in the world. You understand? They don't only send them to the Caribbean, they send them globally, worldwide. You understand? Right? And that is because they invested in their medical program, right? As if you would invest in oil. Understand? So they invest in human capital to turn them into medical proper functioning and specialist medical doctors in order they could supply the world with doctors and nurses. Right? Cuba is known for this, right? And they're known for their excellent doctors and nurses, right? And these Cubans belong to the tribe of Manasseh, understand, which is of the nation of Israel. Understand? We produce some of the best nurses and doctors in the world. Understand? And a lot of people don't know that. Understand? Slakia, if you may, Paul Ecclesiasticus chapter 12 and verse 16. And it's a money on the article, Baba Kusha. Go ahead.
During my time working for a foreign embassy in Havana, I saw firsthand how grateful many countries are.
How what?
How grateful many countries are for Cuban doctors and the benefits they bring to isolated areas.
That's right. And the benefits they bring to isolated areas that nobody wants to go to. Understand? These Cuban doctors would go to these areas. Understand? That's why they say the underserved communities and the areas that nobody wants to go to is basically the ghetto. Understand? Nobody else don't want to work there. Understand? Even right here in Trinidad, I remember being in the San Fernando General Hospital at that time, and they had a shortage of nurses. Right? That was back in the early 2000s. Starting now under the Patrick Manning regime, because he's bringing a set of Cuban doctors here, and these people were working tirelessly, non-stop. You understand? So non-stop, back and forth, going. It had no condition that they would see and frown upon. You understand? They were like the engine at that time functioning in these hospitals. You understand? Right? So they have a very good track record when it comes to the healthcare system in Trinidad and Tobago and the other Caribbean countries. You understand? And many times, because for political gain and clout, many people try to come and say they're no good and send them back because they want to gain something politically. They want to gain good favor with Donald Trump in the United States. You understand? So if we would find the opposition coming and oppose this, right? But when you move away all the politics aside from this, the Cuban doctors have contributed greatly to the medical practitioner in the Caribbean and in the wider world. Right? Continue, Babakusha.
I saw firsthand how grateful many Caribbean countries are for Cuban doctors and the benefits they bring to isolated areas, places that previously had little to no medical access, she said.
Had what?
Little to no medical access,
right? So some of these places where they start to work had little to no medical access. So you know the conditions bad. Understand? And these Cuban doctors go in and perform the duties. Go ahead.
Legally, Trump has broad authority over visa policy to the state. To the State Department, the U.S. government can impose restrictions without needing approval from Congress by citing national security or foreign policy concerns. Affected nations can push back through diplomatic or legal channels. But Bahamut pointed out that the U.S. targeting of Cuban medical missions is not exclusive to the Trump administration.
Right? So it's not exclusive to Trump alone. That was America's policy all along. So all the different governments that come into power in the United States of America always push that agenda against Cuba. You understand? And by extension, the entire world. You understand? And the Cubans belong to the tribal minister. That is our brothers and sisters. And they now are under attack from the so-called from the oppressor. You understand? Right? From Babylon the Great, America today. You understand? And it's showing you how all of us under the curses, just as the Lord said all through Deuteronomy 28. You understand? Our oppressor, we have to go to them for all things. You understand? And now we're seeing here that even control of who come into work in your country as medical professionals. You understand? Through hunger, nakedness, and thirst. You understand? Right? We have to go to them for all things. And it's showing you how day by day the oppressor keep exposing himself. And that's why the Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian man need to come together, right? Need to get in the ICPK under command of General Hanna, because this is the place where you will get the tools, right? To battle and fight all this oppression upon the face of the earth, right? So if somebody can give me the Ecclesiasticus chapter 12 and verse 16, Babakusha.
Ecclesiasticus chapter 12 and verse 16.
So okay, that's what I'm going to catch up with you. Go ahead.
Ecclesiasticus chapter 12 and verse 16. An enemy speaketh sweetly with his lips.
An enemy do it what?
Speaketh sweetly with his lips.
Right? So it say the enemy speaketh sweetly with his lips. Right? And that is what Marco Rubio doing. You understand? They're bringing it across like if they're trying to help out and stop human trafficking. You understand? They're bringing it across smooth, right? Go ahead.
But in his heart, imagine it how to throw thee into a pit.
But in his heart, what?
Imagine it how to throw thee into a pit.
That's right. They're putting the Cubans and the entire Caribbean in that deeper pit. You understand? Because if they take away this program, many people are going to fall ill, they're going to become sick, and they're going to die. And this place is going to become even deeper, in a deeper condition of hell. All right? Continue.
He will weep with his eyes. But if he find opportunity, he will not be satisfied with blood.
That's right. Our oppressor is not satisfied with blood. He willing to go further than that. He willing to completely beat you to a pulp. And understand? Black man, Hispanic man, and Native Indian man. Right? Do not trust our oppressors. Black man, Hispanic man, and Native Indian. They will grind you to a pulp. Go ahead.
Verse 17.
Come on.
Verse 17. If his adversaries come upon thee, thou shalt find him there first, and though he pretend to help thee, yet shall he undermine thee.
That's right. And that is the full spirit of the oppressor. Though America, every time America give any other country something, any gift, or to do anything on their behalf, they always come in to undermine them later down. To do them something wickedly, something that they never imagined. You understand? Right? Just like Trinidad and Tobago, we'll go in this in a little bit. But just like Trinidad, we go to United States, sign a gas deal. You understand? Come back to Trinidad. When we come back to Trinidad, they say the license isn't good again. You understand? Right? They no longer could pursue the gas deal with Venezuela. These are the kind of things the enemy does do. So you go and meet them, they talk nice, they say, yeah, no problem thing. They stand up side by side. You know that they signed the two memorandum of understanding. All that. Eat, drink, and be merry. And when they come back to Trinidad, they recall the license. You understand? And that is the things, the type of the things the oppressors do. They do the pretend to help thee, they shall undermine thee. Right? And that is the thing Donald Trump doing to all the countries in the world. Understand? Right? 1 minute he pretend to help you, next minute he throw you under the bus. You understand? Because his goal is for America, just like I saying, for America to be great again. But the thing, what does catch people is that the feel is everybody in the world. Oh, all are we going to be great again? No. You understand? He is talking about the white elites in America. They are going to be great again. But for the Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian man, right, in America and in the Caribbean, they shoving our faces in the mud. Understand? They keeping us to the bottom of society. Right? They sending us back on all them deportation flights. Some people don't even know their family here. Sending them back on them flights. You understand where I'm from? Right? He laid down a attack on Venezuela and say that they have I forget the name of the gang. Right? All the people that hold from Venezuela is from this particular gang. And instead of sending them back to Venezuela, he sent them to El Salvador in a prison. You understand? So again, deported from America. And instead of get sent back in your home country, you get sent back in another country, in a prison. You understand? And these the oppression, right? That the oppressor bringing upon Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. All right? That was the end of that, Baba Kusha. All right? We could move on to the next article. Let me share it here, which is the one that's saying PM rejects Trump's Cuba policy. This presented here. Right, if you have to go ahead and read Baba Kusha. You get open? Yeah, go ahead.
Prime Minister rejects Trump Cuban policies, says TNT will defend the right to hire doctors.
Right, so the Prime Minister saying, right, so this was the former Prime Minister, right, this was 13 days ago, and it's saying he rejects Trump's policy, right, and he will defend Trinidad. Go ahead.
Prime Minister Keith Rowley has come out in defense of Trinidad and Tobago sovereignty following the recent threat of U.S. visa restrictions and announced by President Donald Trump administration against government utilizing Cuba overseas medical missions. The program, which has been vital to healthcare systems across the region for decades, has been described in a report by the Trump administration as consistent forced labor and a form of human trafficking.
Right, and so this is Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley, and he was, and this was his part of his outgoing speech, right, and the only reason he was able to say this is because he was leaving, right, because many prime ministers who in the position, right, are afraid, understand, to say these things, right, and he's saying here that they accuse them of constituting forced labor and a form of human trafficking, right? Go ahead.
However, while delivering the feature address at the ceremony to mark the practical completion of the $1.3 billion Port of Spain General Hospital Central Block yesterday, Rowley took aim at the Trump policy and reaffirmed this country relation with Cuba.
Right? So he reaffirmed the commitment to keep bringing Cuban nurses and doctors to the country, right? And this was a ceremony of the opening at a new wing at the Port of Spain Hospital. Go ahead.
We rely heavily on healthcare specialists.
Right? So he's saying we rely heavily on healthcare specialists, right? And he's going to list where all these specialists come from, right? This is in 2025. Go ahead.
Whom we have obtained from India.
So one of the places that I get healthcare specialists from is from India. Go ahead.
The Philippines.
The Philippines. Go ahead.
And mainly from Cuba.
And mainly from where?
Mainly from Cuba.
So out of the three places, out of India and the Philippines and Cuba, the main amount of doctors and specialists that I get is from Cuba. That to show how important Cuba is, not only to Trinidad but even to the other Caribbean islands. Go ahead.
Over the decades.
Continue.
Out of the blue, we being called human traffickers.
Right? You see, out of the blue, meaning all of a sudden, they are being called what?
Human traffickers.
Right? The Trump administration is calling them human traffickers, right? Go ahead.
Because we hire technical people who we pay top dollars.
Who we do what?
Who we pay top dollars.
But when we was reading the article before, right? They say the Cuban doctors wasn't being paid at all, and their salary was being restricted. You understand? And here, right, the former prime minister confirming that they're paying the Cuban doctors top dollar. Go ahead.
Equal to local rates.
Equal to what?
Equal to local rates.
So the same pay the doctors gain locally here in Trinidad is the same pay the Cuban doctors receiving, right? So which means they're not being underpaid. Well,
but we are now being accused of taking part in the program where people are being exploited.
Mm-hmm.
That is someone interruption. Interpretation. Rowley said of the Trump administration policy.
That's right, understand? But he said that is someone's interpretation because he's trying to be diplomatic. But what he really means, that is America's interpretation. America interpreted to be what? Human trafficking. Because why? The oppressors say so. Understand? Because the government of Babylon the Great says human trafficking, then it automatically turns human trafficking. Right? And this is the oppression the Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian man, woman, and child have to go through. Go ahead.
Dr. Rowley said he was willing to surrender further trips to the U.S. in an effort to ensure TNT position is not taken lightly. There are local people here encouraging them to take away our U.S. visas.
Right, and he said that the local people in the country, meaning what? Meaning what? The opposition, right? Them of the other nation, right? The East Indians encouraging them to take away the visas. Go ahead.
I came back from California, and if I never go back there again in my life, I will ensure that the sovereignty of Trinidad and Tobago is known to its people and respected by all.
Right, so basically saying he don't care. If they don't take my visa, better take it. But he's not breaking relations with the Cubans. Go ahead.
Last month, the U.S. Secretary of the State, Marco
Rubio articulated
the restricted policy of Cuba. The United States is expanding its Cuba-related visa restriction policy, and the State Department has taken steps to restrict visa
issuance it roll away, so like, yeah. Right, that's right. I'll read it from here, right? So it say, right, the State Department has taken steps to restrict visa issuance to Cubans and complicit third country government officials and individuals responsible for Cuba's exploitative labor export program. Rubio said, adding that the U.S. will promote accountability for the Cuban regime for oppressing its people and those who profit from their forced labor. So they're trying to say that the Cubans oppressing their own people, right? When this program has been going on for decades without issue. The only place that have an issue with Cubans exporting nurses and doctors all over the world is the United States. Is the United States government. You understand? And this is the thing the oppressor does. When he makes up that story against the all the Caribbean islands, now they find themselves in a position now, either the comply or the face heavy restrictions upon them, right? And one of the restrictions was the visa restriction, right? And I just want to put up this small thing here, and all this happening, right, to the tribe of Monessa, right, which is the so-called Cubans today, right, and they have had a terrible history with the United States, right, because people feel like this has now started to happen, but these things are brewing for years and decades, right, upon time. And Cuba, all places like Haiti, right, that come under heavy punishment and scrutiny from the United States of America because of their history, right, because of their history in the past, right, they have been under the hand of the oppressor heavily. And that's why the Most High Power tell us to do what? Give me Zephaniah chapter 2 and verse 1, Babakisha, right? That's why the most High tell us we need to come back together as a nation, come back together, right? As a people, right? And the ISUPK under command of Johnny Hanna, right, provides that place for the Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian man to do so. All right. So when you get in Zephaniah chapter 2 and verse 1, you can go and read it, Babakisha.
Zephaniah chapter 2 and verse 1. Gather yourselves together.
Do what?
Gather yourselves together. Ye, gather together, O nation not desired.
Right? And the Moses say, gather yourselves, O nation not desired. Right? And just like how we have up we have up on the screen, right? These are the 12 tribes of Israel today, right? Judah, the so-called Negroes, Benjamin, the West Indians, Levi, the Haitians, Simeon, the Dominicans, right? We have Zebulon, right? Guatemala to Panama, right? Ephraim, right? The Puerto Ricans, Monessa, what we're talking about today, the Cubans, right? You have Gad, I'm breaking a little bigger, right? You have Gad, right? The North American Indians, Reuben, the Seminole Indians, Naphtali, which is the region of Argentina to Chile, Asher, Colombia to Uruguay, right? So all these so-called Venezuelans, Brazilians, right? Straight all the way down to Uruguay, right? And then you have Issachar, right? These so-called Mexicans today. All these nations, right? The majority of these people, once they're descendants from the Atlantic slave trade or the first people nations, you belong to the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. Black man, Hispanic man, and Native Indian man, right? And this is what we teach in the ISUPK under command of Johnny Hanna, right? So, just as we are bringing out with the Cubans, right? I want to share this small excerpt, right? And this is a small piece of history, right, with the Cubans, right? And they have been catching hell, as we just said, from Babylon the Great or United States of America, right? And this is a small excerpt explaining the Cuban Missile Crisis, right? And it say, right, the Cuban Missile Crisis, which took place in October 1962, was a 13-day confrontation between the United States and the Soviet Union, right, which we know as Russia today, right, that brought the world to the brink of nuclear war. It began when the US discovered Soviet nuclear missile sites being built in Cuba, just 90 miles off the coast of Florida. This was perceived as a direct threat to the US security, given the proximity of the missiles, right? So because it was close to America, they view it as a direct threat to America. In response, President John F. Kennedy ordered a naval blockade around Cuba to prevent further Soviet shipments of military equipment, right? So they sent out naval ships surround Cuba so that no military equipment could pass from the Soviet Union to Cuba. Tensions escalated with both sides preparing for potential military action. The world watched in fear as the situation teetered on the edge of war. After intense negotiations, the back-channel communications, Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev agreed to move the missile from Cuba in exchange for a US pledge not to invade the island. Additionally, the US secretly agreed to remove its own missiles from Turkey, which bordered with the Soviet Union. So Turkey, on the border of Turkey with the Soviet Union, they had missiles, right? And that wasn't a problem. But when the Soviet Union bring missiles in Cuba, then it become a problem, right? So the also secretly agreed to remove the missiles from Turkey, which bordered the Soviet Union. The crisis ended in October 28, 1962, de-escalating what could have been a catastrophic nuclear conflict. The Cuban Missile Crisis had a lasting impact, leading to a thaw in the US-Soviet relations and the establishment of a direct hotline communication link between Washington and Moscow to prevent future crisis. So it gets so bad that they had to have a direct communication link between the two, so that they will be able to call instantly to know if whatever developments happen, if it's you doing it or not. You understand? And this is just a little excerpt from the history to show how far this has been stemming from. You understand? So it's not only just about doctors and nurses. This is about the oppressor oppressing an entire tribe, understand, of the nation of Israel. Understand? So don't matter where the black, Hispanic, and Native Indian man go on the face of the earth today, understand, he is going to be under the oppression of the oppressor. You understand? Right? Whether you're in the Caribbean, in United States of America, if you leave and you go to England, watch when in England where all the Caribbean people, just the other day they wanted to do the Windrush, when they wanted to send back everybody from England back in the Caribbean. That they become a big heated debate. It caused riot, you understand, and all kind of turmoil in England. Then when you look at the United States now them want to send back everybody from the Caribbean back into everybody from the United States back into the Caribbean, right? Right? It's like the Lord making the same thing happen in different parts of the earth. You understand? Right? And the Lord ultimately has his plan for the earth. And the oppressor, why is the oppressor believing that he is on top and nobody can break him and nobody can stop him? The Most High is working his plan to build back his people and to build back the nation of Israel. Right? So you black, Hispanic, and Native Indian, man, if you want to be aware of what's going on in society today, come into the ISPK under command of John Yohana, right? Right? Don't stay outside and say, what you don't believe in God, understand, and it's not God, understand, and stay outside in the wilderness not knowing. Understand? Right? Give me Psalms 14 and verse 1, Babakasha. Right? Those stay outside just being in ignorance. The IRCP under the command of Jenny is the place for the Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian man to learn his history, to learn his identity, to learn who he is as a people, right? So that we will be able to understand, right, what is taking place in society, and we just wouldn't we just wouldn't be distracted by the bywords, but by what they call us, right? So when they say we is Cubans or Trinidadians, no, we are not Cubans or Trinidadians, right? The Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian people are the first peoples, right? We belong to the nation of Israel. We belong to the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel, right? We are the descendants of Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel, right? So give me chapter Psalms chapter 14 and verse 1, Babakisha.
Book of Psalms chapter 14 and verse 1. The fool has said in his heart, there is no God.
There is what?
There is no God.
That's right. Understand? So I didn't say it, the Bible saying it. Understand? So many people who believe it have no God, the Bible call you a fool for believing so. Because every day when you get up and the sun rise, understand, and the rain cycle from the ground to the clouds and fall back to the earth, understand, all the things, the flowers blooming, right? All the cycles of the earth taking place, right? That could show anybody that this place is operating by a higher power. Understand? Right? And that is the most high power, right? And you will be foolish to say that this place don't have a God. You will be a fool. Understand? And just as the scripture say what your own foolishness going to correct you. Right? So you Black man, Hispanic man, and Native Indian man, come into the ISCPK under command of Jenny Hanna. Come and learn your history, come and learn your identity, come and understand your history and who you are according to this Bible. Understand? Right? And Salakia, we will just read one more and we will close, right? Give me Romans chapter 15 and verse 4, Babakusha. And we'll close up.
Book of Romans chapter 15 and verse 4. Whatsoever things were written aforetime.
Right, so the scripture is saying the things that written aforetime, the things written in the past, go ahead.
Were written for our learning.
Was written for what?
For our learning.
It was written for us to learn from it, for the Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian man, for us to learn these things. Understand? Right? All these laws, statutes, and commandments in the scriptures, all the things that we see happening in the past, it's coming back and happening again. And this is for us to understand and to learn from. Right? Murder didn't just take place today. It used to happen in the past. Understand? Right? And now, when it happened today, you're going to understand why you shouldn't murder somebody, why you shouldn't steal from somebody, why you shouldn't be wickedly to somebody, why you should gather together with your people. All these things, right, were written in the past for our learning. Go ahead, Baba Kasha.
That we show patience and comfort on the scriptures by the hope.
That's right. And that is how the Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian man going to have hope. We believe, right, in the coming of Christ. A black man. And that's where I come from, right? Who is going to be sent from the Most High, going to crack the sky and take back control of this earth. Crush the oppressor. Black man, Hispanic man, and Native Indian man. You belong to the 12 tribes of Israel. You belong to a nation that is rebuilding right in front of your eyes on the face of the earth, right? And it is happening here in the ISUPK under command of Jenny Hanna, where we produce mighty men upon the face of the earth to go out and to do the work of the Lord, right? And I just like to say, don't forget, it passing below the upcoming Lord's Passover, 56th annual Passover, April 12th, 2025, sundown, right? And with that, we're going to pass the class over to Priest and Officer Mark Prayer.
Security announcements. We are the ISPK out of West Manchester Street, New York, under commanding General Yohana. New rules for brothers and sisters. When a new brother or sister comes into the school, they are working for 6 months. They have to be saluted only. They are here to share themselves of the world. After 6 months, if a brother or sister has an interest in a particular person, he or she must get permission from the head to speak to a brother or sister. There's another 6 months in which a brother or sister will court each other. After this 6-month period, the brother or sister will get permission from the head to marry. Tithe, which is a commandment. You can find this in Numbers chapter 18, verse 21, and Malachi chapter 3, verse 8 to 10. Means 10 in Hebrew, and it's pronounced Ma'asher. 10% of every penny of any increase the Lord gives you, give to the treasury department or teacher. Priest fund, period offering for priests. Not mandatory, whatsoever amount you would like to give. A common holy convocation, that is the Lord's 56th annual Passover. The 14th day of the first month. You can find that in Exodus chapter 12, verse 1 to 51, Leviticus chapter 23, verse 4 to 5, 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 78, and 2 Corinthians chapter 13, and verse 17. Right? Upcoming, remind everyone to attend the check on social media such as ISBK.com, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and so on for ISBK events and material. If your brother wants to be a trooper in school, then he needs to start wearing all black, which include black boots, like shirt, like pants, like headbands, or scarf. And that we say in Madiam. The Pani Apodam must mean stand and face the east. We need to see the Lord's Prayer in the Hebrew. Abanawa, Shemai, Pagash, Aya, Power, Kawa, Aya, Shemai, Tanlana, Wasalakana, Kapapatna, Kasalakana, Kapapatna, Shine, yeah, right, yeah, I will love you,
What we said in the English was our Father, Father be thy name, how, in the come, when we done, as in heaven, give us this day, our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil, for thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. So be it. We say the prayer of the blessings in Hebrew. Rakataya Hawa, Shai, what he said in English was, let's be Hawa, and Yahusha, and Michael, and the angel, general, captain, officer, troopers, and the sister. Yahweh, name of Yahusha. Thank you. So be it. When you say the prayer of the power, the Hakat, the Hebrew, Yahweh, Hashem, Yahusha, Babakusha, Tananab, Hakat, what he said in the English was Yahweh, name of Yahusha. Please give us the power, or the heat, all man of sickness, all man of disease, or to cleanse the leper, or to raise the dead, or against some mean spirit, cast them out. In the name of Yahusha. Thank you. So be it. This is the ISBK Christians. Blessed be Yahweh, King of heaven and all things living. How? Name of Yahusha. Listen to us now. Right now. Send evils and curses, punishment and destruction. All the evil. Against us, like prophet, the teacher, the prince, the priest, the Israelite brother, and the school. Send evils and curses, and punishment and destruction. Lead and shake loose. The strength of Israel. Refuse to give to the school. Force their riches. Evils and curses, and punishment and destruction. To the Edomite, the nation, and their government, the court system, prison system, Planned Parenthood, all the government of our enemies. Roman Catholic Church, Islam, Christianity, Egyptology, Malaysia, Hookup flag,
Next class. Area nation. Skinhead. Kumatat. Game. Lesbian move. Spy. Workers of witchcraft. Army. Navy. Air Force. Marine. Wall Street. Open up the internet. And the areas. Give access. And the radio channel. Convict the spirit. Many of that people seek to stop us. And bring swift destruction. All the need. Stand away. But try to stop us. From broadcasting your words. Throw the planet. Let loose. All the plagues. Cause them to go to and through you. And consume them. Let the plague. Shake the house of the tea. And the murder. Let the house Michael and Gabriel come down with the flying sauce and punish all the evil and come against as we speak thy word, cause it to be known by all, and it is the age that cause it to be spread through the media, throughout the whole world, cause them to shake and in the name of Yahweh. Thank you. So be it. Going to say the prayer that's Israel in the Hebrew, Yahweh, Hashem, Rocking out, Shad, Abaya, Safari, Rock, Magan, Commanding General, Captain, Officer, Sister, all the destroyed of Israel, Kayarona, Shariah, Muslim family, Indian family, Kutu family, Philip family, Fletcher family, Commanding General. General, captains, the officers, the fathers, the servants, all those in the truth, Matza, Naya.
Brothers and sisters in the truth.
Brothers and sisters in the truth. Transform family. Wrong family. Zion. Daniel. Commanding General, Captain, Officer, Troopers, Sisters, Children, all those fighting to be true. Muslim family, Philip family, Kutu family. Commanding General, Captain, Officers, Troopers, all the Sisters. Hashem Yahweh, Tabarama. What he said in the English was Lord, in the name of Yahweh, bless us, and his school, bless, she, protect, hold on, in the name of Yahweh, so be it. Sir, men of Israel, let's give the teacher one courtesy salute. I'm at Shabbat, I'm Adia, Barak, Yahweh Hashem, Yahweh Hashem, Yanemata. Let's give the sisters online. I want to put this salute. I'm Madam Shabbat. I'm Adia. Barak. Yahweh class dismissed.